Democracy Day. I'm Sean Kimbaloye, and it is my honor to welcome you to a pivotal and highly anticipated event in our nation's history, the China's Television's Security Summit and Town Hall, aptly scheduled on this momentous occasion, our Democracy Day. Today, as we commemorate 25 years of uninterrupted democratic dispensation, we bring together some of the brightest minds, leading security experts, and influential policymakers to deliberate on our most pressing security challenges today. This summit is not just a forum for discussion, but a concerted effort to forge practical and actionable solutions that will ensure the safety and stability of our beloved nation. Over the next few hours, we will delve deep into the myriad security issues plaguing our society, from insurgency and banditry to cyber threats and communal conflicts. Our goal is to move beyond rhetoric and focus on data-driven analysis and evidence-based strategies that can be implemented to restore peace and build a resilient security framework. The unique convergence of insight today is not only a testament to our collective resolve, but also a beacon of hope that signals a new era of security and democratic prosperity for Nigeria. So with us, everyone, as we embark on this crucial journey towards securing our future and upholding the values of democracy that we so dearly cherish. Tonight, let me share with you some information that will be very important for you. And of course, today in this room, we have some eggheads, some security experts, and passionate Nigerians that will be putting their minds and their voices into some of those very important issues that we need to focus on and change our security landscape in our nation today. Let me quickly introduce our panel tonight for you, those who are readily right here on the seat. I've joining us tonight, the chair of the Defense Committee in the House, Honorable Babajimi Benson. Thank you so much, Honorable, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
And of course, we have the DIG, Deputy Inspector General of Police, Research and Planning, Mr. Dasuki Galadanchi. Thank you so much indeed for joining us today. And of course, a lawyer, a scholar, and a security expert, Dr. Charles Omole. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. And the Executive Director of YAGA Africa, one of the voices in the advocacy for democracy in Nigeria, Mr. Samson Itodo. Thank you so much indeed for joining us today.
Thanks, always a delight.
Everyone, let's turn our attention to some of these data and statistics that are going to be very crucial for our conversation today. Of course, in our nation, we do know the number, everybody has been talking about the number of the police that we need and that we have. We know that we have just about 370,000 police personnel in Nigeria. But what does the United Nations say? It says that the ratio of one police officer to 450 citizens, that is what the United Nations recommend. But again, if you look further, you will discover that there are a few things that are needed, because the Inspector General of Police has been talking about what is needed. He makes some recommendation. He says there's a need for an increase in annual recruitment quota from 10,000 to 20,000. He's also saying that the Nigerian police requires an additional 190,000 personnel to be at par with the United Nations recommendation. Don't forget, the ratio is 1 to 450 police officers to 450 citizens. So let's go further and let's give an understanding of just what we have on our hands. Of course, we do know the number of police officers, but a lot of people will say, do they have the capacity, numbers to police Nigeria? These are major questions on the minds of everyone. These are some of the major security challenges of our nation today. Lack of funding, inadequate personnel, manpower, ineffective legal framework, lack of intelligence coordination, inadequate intelligence gathering and coordination. Those are the times they will say fifth columnists within the security network and infiltration are some of our major problems. But again, we have some major threats across the country. One region with its own problems, which the security agencies say they are working towards. We have the militant Islamic groups, criminal gangs, heard of farmer-related violence, militant Biafran separatists, piracy, security sector violence against civilians. These are some of the security threats that we're talking about today in our nation. Now, take a look at these from the Africa Center, some of the data coming in. All of those security threats that I mentioned, you see the map on how they look across the country. Militant Islamic groups, you see them in some parts of the northeast region of the country. Criminal gangs, you see them all over the place in some parts of the northwest, north central. You see a couple of that within the middle belt of Nigeria, and some also you see in the south region of the country. But each region has its own very peculiar security threat that we can see on that map. Of course, this is coming from our partners and our friends at Next Year, who have done a breakdown of what the security situation has been in the last year since President Bola Tinubu came into office. And you can see evidently that each region has its own peculiar security challenge, from the northeast to the northwest, north central. You see the number of incidents and casualties, and you can be able to glean for yourself the kind of information that we need in being able to tackle effectively the security problems that we have in our country today. So, of course, let's move further to let you know that comparatively, look at April 2024 versus May 2024. And this is coming from Beacon Security Agency, led by our very good friend, Kabiru Adam. Look at abduction issues. 311 incidents there to 128 of those incidents that we see in comparison to between the two months of April and May. The fatalities also, it shows you the abduction rate rose in the month of May. If you look at the fatalities, 1,097 in April, 1,090 fatalities is gone down in the month of May. What about the incidents? 691 in April, it's gone up 762 in the month of May. Kidnapping is a major problem, which a lot of people are worried about. But SVM intelligence had come out to give these statistics. They say about 18.34 million US dollars have been paid to kidnappers as ransom between 2011 and 2020. That's just about 10 years or so. And if you calculate it with the rate of the dollar today, it's way over 24 billion naira. That is the kind of problem that we have on our hands. And how we can solve it, we'll be discussing it tonight, everyone. And of course, Next Year is also telling us that the violent conflict data that we have in the 1 year of President Bola Tinubu in office, this is what it tells us. The incidence is about 1,095. We have 3,959 casualties according to Next Year, and the data reported in their report recently released. And they say out of that figure, the deaths is about 3,444 and injured people about 515. These are some of the statistics that are available that we do know right now today in our nation. But of course, we know that President Bola Tinubu has been speaking. We woke up everyone to President Bola Tinubu's early morning Democracy Day broadcast, and it's been an all-day commemoration of the Nigeria's Democracy Day. Let me remind you of what the president said earlier today.
As a president of the morally and constitutionally bound to preserve this precious moment, I vow to do my utmost best to freedom, liberty, as citizens of Nigeria. Even more than that, I pledge to do whatever is necessary to cement democracy as our way of life.
That was the president's speech earlier today, a promise to secure our nation in the midst of all of the troubles. Of course, we're celebrating democracy. But let's get started, everyone. It seems to be that a whole lot of you know the problems, and that's why Channels Television had gone on our social media platform to ask you some very crucial questions, and I hope that you will jump quickly to your social media pages and now start telling us what exactly you think. We're asking the question today, what do you think are some of the most critical challenges facing our security agencies today. There is a poll right there on our social media. Go to Channels Television Twitter handle, and you will be able to participate in the poll and let us know what you feel about what you think in your own mind, wherever you may be, whether you are living in Kafancha, in some part of the northwestern region of the country, or you are living in Elisha, in some part of southwest Nigeria. Go straight and let us know what your views are. And some of your questions, of course, send them to us under your comment section, and we might be able to address them today, because we hope that tonight, collectively, we can find a solution to our security problems, because we have policymakers, lawmakers, some governors who will be joining us tonight, and of course, heads of security agencies at the very, very top. We'll be speaking to them tonight on the program. So let's get started. The first question I would like to ask is that, what exactly is Nigeria's security problem? And I'll be getting about a minute and a half or 2 minutes from my panelists tonight. Let me begin with the DIG. I'll put it right on the spot. Let's hear from you. You are at the M, and you and your men and your superiors, you are working to ensure that security problems are solved in this country. But as a very senior police officer, what would you say is a major security problem in our country today?
Thank you for having me here. I'm here on behalf of the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kaide Adeole Ebedukum, MPM, PhD. He's unavoidably not here. He will have wished to be here himself, but due to exigency of duty, he is not here. Your question is very complex, and the reality is that I will tell you what the IG is doing on your particular question. You have already said it even before you come and sit down, that the challenges and the problems that is happening in Elisha definitely differs from the one that is happening in Zamfara and Lagos State. So based on this, your observations, the Inspector General of Police had graciously, looking at it strategically, agreed and made us to go and do what we call crime mapping and crime pattern analysis of the whole nation, with a view to knowing and understanding what type of peculiarities we have in each and particular communities in our 774 local governments nationwide. Based on this, once we got this information, we are going to input it into our national policing plan, and it will help us in many ways. One, in doing what we call evidence-based budgeting. Two, in tackling the challenges and the problems as it is. Three, in making us responsible, accountable, and we're open and transparent for the members of the public to now ask questions and look at issues objectively as it is obtained world over. Thank you.
No, but I love that you are very smart about my question, but you know, we are here for you. We are here with you, and we are here for our nation tonight. What we're trying to do tonight is that we do not want to beat around the bush. We want to tackle the problem head on. We want to take the program and sniff air out of the problem tonight. That's our plan today. Because it's Democracy Day, our nation must survive. In your own mind, and I'm asking the question again, as a police officer, what do you think is one major problem of security in this country today?
You cannot ask such type of question that what is the major security challenge in this country? Is it our own problem as security officers or as a nation?
I'm asking as a police officer.
Yeah.
What would you say is your own major problem in tackling security?
Well, you have already said some of the answers. You said United Nations standard is 1 to 450. We are 370,000 policemen. So there is issue of lack of manpower. There is issue of inadequate funding. There is issue of capacity. There is issue of information sharing. There is issue of intelligence. There is issue of partnership. There is issue of community-based policing, where the communities will now partner with the police and let us know exactly what we want. Those are some of the issues. So it's a multifaceted, issues that actually need us to come together as a team and solve this solution. The main thing which the IG always said is identify your local problems, use local solutions, and solve such problems. And if actually we can imbibe that, adding to the fact of the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, where you say, see something and say something. Change begins with me. I think we can solve this. We can solve the problem.
Honorable, you and your colleagues, you've had security summit under Gabiamila leadership of the House, and you've had closed session on what the problems of security is. What, in your own view, is Nigeria's major security problems? And I'm starting with this question because we cannot have a solution when we do not know what the problems are.
Thank you very much, Sean. Section 14.2 of the Nigerian Constitution says the primary function of government is to ensure that security of lives and the welfare of lives are prioritized. Like the DIG said, the problems of the policing or security are multifaceted. He's listed a couple of them, and I agree with him. You have density issues. The UN pegs it as 1 to 400. You have funding issues. You have climate change issues. You have synergy issues. You have funding. You have external issues as well. You have foreign exchange issues. So they're multifaceted. But this administration has a clear path of ensuring that those big issues are mitigated. I always say that we live in a VUCA world. The world is violent, the world is uncertain, the world is complex, the world is ambiguous. So there will always be big holes that needs to be filled up. I'm going to speak as a parliamentarian, you know. So we have our own strategy of mitigating these big issues. We have these challenges, and I'm sure you're going to ask us further into this discussion on how we think we can move through the labyrinth. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Omale, do you agree? Are you on the same note with the DIG and Honorable Benson?
Yes, on a general note, yes. But if you ask me what I think is a salient problem with insecurity in Nigeria, I think it is the fact that security in Nigeria historically has been left only to the armed services. You see, there's no nation that can ever be secure if your security is purely in the hands of your armed services. Security has to be seen as a function of every department of government. That is what we are not doing in Nigeria. What do I mean by that? You see, the armed services are doing their best to, for example, deal with criminality, but without proper engagement, government through its own policies are actually throwing more people into the criminal pool. Therefore, it becomes a vicious cycle that never ends. So, there's a need for government to begin to think about the concept of what I call security impact assessment of its major policies. You know, so there's no point saying, you know, we see that in our newspapers every day, the army killed 50 Boko Haram suspects, they killed this, they killed that. But how many are being recruited into those camps daily to replace those that were killed? So that's where the cycle continues. So for me, the government needs to engage security in such a way that every department of government needs to know that its policies impact on security of the country. You know, and that, I think, is a concept that hasn't really sunk in and governments have not really engaged with. And I will elaborate on that more later. But for me, I think it's the all-of-nation approach to security that is lacking.
Thompson, are you of the same opinion?
Well, so I agree with some of the challenges that have been highlighted as the major driver of insecurity. But let me preface my intervention by just saying that when you think about insecurity, there are deep-rooted social injustices that are driving insecurity. I'll give a practical example. The president this morning spoke to the nation. very brilliant speech. He paid tribute to those who laid their lives for our democracy. 99% of the people he mentioned are all men. Only 1 or 2 women. But we know that the struggle for democracy, had women who not just lost their lives, but they were also on the street. And I thought that it was a missed opportunity that in this morning's speech, they didn't pay tribute to women. And so, if women feel excluded, and they have the right to feel excluded, when people feel excluded as a result of either lack of economic opportunities or political opportunities, it drives discontent. And then that drives them into using alternative forms of ventilating their grievances, because the manifestation of insecurity that we have seen in our own context is driven by different factors. And I just want to begin my intervention by just highlighting those deep-rooted social injustices and structural inequities within our system that is driving this discontent in our polity.
So, the president didn't go directly on security and the problems of security. He was just talking generally on democracy, but he made a promise of securing our nation. Did that come out to you in any way as someone who has plans for security, though?
One knows that the president does have plans for security. Security is part of his it was part of his manifesto, it's part of his agenda. We've seen, actions taken by the current administration to address issues around insecurity. Look at some of the police reforms, the number of personnel being recruited. If you also look at funding for security agencies, that has gravely improved, some level of coordination. But that's not enough. There's a lot more that the president needs to do. The big question is, does the average Nigerian feel secured in their own country as at today? The answer is no, because there are several actions that need to be taken, to address some of these. And some of the challenges have been highlighted. But I just want to harp on, the whole discussion around transparency and the management of security operations. We've got security votes that have been part of our entire sort of democratic system. Ask the politicians, ask the governors, what have they done with those security votes? And we've seen that some of them have been conduit pipes, and those resources have not been used to address the fundamental issues that bedevil our polity. So, yes, the president says he's going to tackle this. We should give him the benefit of doubt to do so. But as citizens, we don't feel secured in our country. But that does not mean that the security agencies are not making an effort. Because on a day like this, we also need to pay tribute to our security men and women who are doing their bit to secure our country. Some of them lose their lives. Some of them have families, right? And some of them have died in the course of national service. And we should pay tribute, because even the democracy that we celebrate today, it's also protected and promoted by some of our security forces. But there are fundamental issues of accountability, and I hope that we will discuss them at this town hall.
Absolutely. We will try as much as possible to be holistic. And there are a lot of people who are in the room who are hoping to lend their voices, ask questions. We'll be joined by governors and very top senior security officers. But there is a very interesting question that we have asked Nigerians. And that's why I asked you to go to our social media platform and start lending your voice. And the question is, what would you say is the security agency's biggest challenge? That's one major question that we want you to answer and poll. Let us know what you think. And the options are there. Is it lack of manpower? Is it corruption and political will? Is it funding or lack of intelligence? These are some of the questions that we are asking you. Of course, we are asking you to poll on some of these and see thousands of people who are already doing that. We will release what you are thinking and what you're saying in the course of the summit. What would you say is the security agency's biggest challenge? Lack of manpower, corruption and political will, funding, or lack of intelligence. We also are asking you to give us your view on what you think. Do you agree that Nigeria needs state policing to address its security challenge? And we ask you whether, yes, we need it now, no, we don't trust states, get community policing, or we need restructuring. These are some of the options available that you can lend your voice on. Because right now, I like us to touch on one thing and we go on a break. And when we come back from that break, we will get people in the room to start asking questions that I hope that we can find answers to. But, Honorable, a lot of Nigerians, if you ask them today, what are the problems of Nigeria's security, they will tell you different things. And if you ask them the solution, they will tell you when they went to America, when they went to Germany, when they went to the UK, these are some of the things that are applicable there. What makes it difficult for us to have a legal framework? There are a lot of people who are talking about community policing, state policing. Why is it so difficult to legislate on security matters, despite all of the talks that have gone around it?
It's not difficult to legislate on security matters. As a matter of fact, Mr. President's second bill, I'm going to talk about that later as a solution, has been the DICON bill which he signed. The DICON bill ensures that we have a regulatory framework that will create a multi-industrial complex for arms manufacturing, both light weapons and software. You may not be aware, that's the next gold for Nigeria, gold mine, manufacturing of arms. As we speak today, we have a lot of Nigerian firms that manufacture and sell hardware, software for leading countries, for the UN, for Rwanda, for Niger, for Chad. We're doing so well in that industry. Mr. President's first bill, second bill he signed after coming into office is the DICON bill. The DICON equivalent in Brazil makes about $1.5 billion per year. We intend to grow our own DICON to such stage whereby it's going to be a huge revenue earner for Nigeria. And like I said earlier, we've started. We have companies like Proforce, EPAL, Caverton. They're collaborating with our defense industry to ensure that foreign exchange is domiciled locally. These are local companies. These are local companies, yes.
Weapons
for export, yeah, unbelievably so.
Does the law allow companies to produce weapons locally?
Yes, definitely. So I sponsored the bill. It was signed by Mr. President in January, and we've seen a tremendous interest, both locally and internationally, in setting up factories in Nigeria, because the market is big. You just said it, that we have that we're under policed. We have 300,000 armed policemen. We have about less than 250 armed forces. We have civil defense. We have different types of law enforcement agencies here and there. They need to wear boots. They need to wear uniform. They need to carry some form of arm. They need to wear bulletproof vest. So Nigerian firms are doing great. Foreign firms understand that that market is huge. We also have countries in the ECOWAS sub-region that need to be equipped. Their armies need to be equipped. So some of our local companies are looked up to supply hardware, software in this emerging world.
Sorry, Honorable, apologies are these companies you mentioned who are producing weapons locally, have they started supplying our armed forces and the Nigerian police? Have they started engaging and selling to Nigerian market?
Absolutely. But we can do more. So the law we signed also empowers the DICON to ensure standardization. Standardization in the sense that any weapon we manufacture in Nigeria can be used anywhere in the world, right? So we even have demand issues where they can't meet up with the supply. So there is a real ecosystem coming up in that space. That's the first one. The second one is the state police. The parliament, I will speak as a parliamentarian. The parliament is also looking critically at the state police bill. It is something that we are working at seriously to ensure that same is passed as soon as possible. We've had issues. Some states say they don't want state police. Some say they want. There's also a conversation that if you don't want, don't apply. If your state needs state police, apply. If you apply, remember how universities are licensed. You apply to Nigerian Universities Commission. The Ombudsman, the University Service Commission, has a checklist of condition precedents to granting a license. If they meet that condition precedent, a license is issued subject to FEC approval. So I think the time is right for us to introduce that into the polity. So it's not by force. Any state that feels that its state is not well policed, if the density is low, they can apply. But they must meet some stringent conditions before the licenses are granted. The licenses would also come with caveats. It can be revoked, it can be suspended, it may not be renewed if the state uses it in on an unlawful way or it abuses it. So those are conversations we're having in Parliament, and we're very responsible about it. But state police is not something we just rush into. We have to look at it critically, and so. The other thing I say to people is that you've done your density. I saw it. I saw there's also a density for the armed forces. But what we also lose sight of is if you say the Nigerian policemen are 300, if you say the armed forces are about 300, that's 600,000. There's an industry, a security industry that employs over 1 million people as private security men. If you add Axego, you add, those private security, I saw some out there. If you add them together, they are 2 times more than our real armed forces and policemen put together. So if we shy away from state police and things like that, these guys are already employed to provide security service on a lower scale. Right. So the conversation should be encourage states, local governments, if maybe, to also have access to being able to secure their environment in the best way they think they can. Right. So the government is being proactive and taking critical steps to ensure that the country is protected. Thank you.
Now, there may be some traffic, but it doesn't. The question is whether there is traction, and that is the reason why we are here today. These activities that you have talked about, how much of solution has it brought into the fray? And that is the reason why we are having to talk about it. But we're due for a break, and of course, I know that Governor Lawal of Zamfara State is live with us from Guzo. We will soon go live to Guzo to speak to him. He's an executive governor. He knows where the shoe pinches when you're talking about the chief security officer of a state. He can tell us his problems and his frustration, and then we'll talk about solutions tonight. But we are due for a break, everyone. We're going to break, and when we return, more about Nigeria's security problems and also much more about the solutions after this break, everyone. Join us again. Much everyone, welcome back to Channels Television Special Security Summit in Townhall, and we've been discussing the problems, and we're looking at also solutions. And of course, I have a few people in the room who are going to be asking questions and giving their views on what exactly we need to do in charting a way forward. That, in fact, is our goal tonight, charting a way forward. Of course, Honorable Jimmy Benson, House Committee Chair on Defense, has been talking to us. and the DIG, Galandachi, of course, Dr. Charles Omale and Mr. Samson Itodo have been with us. Earlier, I told you that the executive governor of Zamfara State, Governor Dauda Lawal, is live with us. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sean.
Great. It's good to have you. We're going straight to the point and hitting the nail on the head. In summary, what would you say, as a governor, from your own point of view, is one major problem of security in Nigeria today?
Well, Sharon, first of all, let me thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on this platform. Let me talk about two basic things, major things that I issue as a concern. Number one, of course, if you look at the number of either military or police that we have in the country, compared to the capacity we are having in the country, the number is way too low. That is number one. Number two, when it comes to capacity of security operatives to effectively take care of security situation in the country, they have the ability to do that. However, the major challenge here is political interference. If we're able to take care of this, believe me, they have what it takes to take care of whatever security challenges we are facing in this country. These are the two basic things that I can talk about, and these are real.
What would you say, and I like to put you on the spot, because putting you on the spot, not just for the sake of it, but also to find solution. Would you say, as an executive governor, you have a full control of your territory in terms of securing it?
Well, let me say this, Sharon. Remember yesterday I was in the morning, part of the morning show, and I spoke about the fact that if we are really committed and we have the political will, all this issue of banditry, kidnapping, cattle rustling, and other form of insecurity, we can handle this within 2 weeks. And I mean it, and I still repeat it. If I have the power now, and if they're under my control, believe me, in 2 weeks, we'll be able to finish the issue of banditry and kidnapping in my state. There's no two way about it.
So in essence, you are not in full control of the whole gamut of securing your territory as a governor?
No, I'm not in control. As I said, I don't have control over the military, nor the police, or the civil defense.
Well, I mean, you are one of the 36 states governor. Is this what is applicable also to your... And the reason why I'm asking this question is because your other title, aside being the executive governor, is that you are the chief security officer of your state. So does that title, is it valid?
It's a very, very interesting title that we all have. I'm sure if you ask all my colleagues across the 36 states, they will tell you a different story. Yes, by name, I'm the chief security officer of the state. But when it comes to command and control, I don't have control over any of the security outfits, either the military, the police, or the civil defense. They take their instructions from their head office or headquarters, from their superiors, not from the governor. We don't have that control. And I wish we do have. It would have been a different story.
So we are not trying to find our way around the dark, because if people like you are on this platform within this summit, we're getting insight that will help us to find our way around in the dark, because we have some light in the room. So if I have the power, Governor, if I have the power, and I ask you this question, what will it take for you to have full control of security and be able to govern or secure your state? What would you say?
If I have my own military, if I have my own police or civil defense in Zamfara State, believe me, I don't need to look anywhere or elsewhere. I'll be in full control, and I know where the issues are, and I'll be able to face these issues head on. But like I said, I don't have control over the security outfits, but I wish I do have. it would have been a different story. Banditry in Zamfara would have been history by now.
Interesting. So, what would you do, for example, if you had it today? What would you do differently? If you had all of these instruments that you are asking for.
K1, I'm in Zamfara, and I'm sure you have all the information that Zamfara has become a base for kidnapping, cattle rustling, and other banditry activities in northern Nigeria. And I said, if we're able to take care of Zamfara today, the issue of banditry will be history, because Zamfara has become a hope for all these criminal activities. And like I said, if I'm in control, believe me, in 2 weeks' time, banditry issue will be history in Zamfara State. And that, same applies to all the governors of northern Nigeria and even beyond.
So you will like state police?
In a way, yes. It has advantage and disadvantage. But to some extent, yes, I do want to have that control. Because if I do, then I know exactly what to do, because we understand the environment very well. We live with these people. We know where they are. So getting them is not an issue. We have the intelligence. We have everything.
Well, what is frustrating? What would you say is frustrating you the most in all of this? What would you say is more frustrating? On one hand, you do not have full control, but aside that, you say you have intelligence.
Sharon, political interference is the major factor here. If we don't have that, believe me, the military, they have the capacity to crush anybody. Remember, we do have our forces in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and they did excellent, very well. That is even in a foreign country. Talk less of here that will understand the terrain very well. So we have what it takes. They have the capacity to do that. But the major challenge is the political interference. We are playing with human lives. Everything is political. Why is it so? For goodness sake. Why can't you face this head on? Why?
Okay.
That is the serious issue that we're facing. And I'm sure same applies to all the governors that are facing security challenges in Nigeria today.
And I'm going to ask you this question before I come to the panelists, Governor Lawal. There are those who are saying, yes, state policing, advantages, disadvantages. There are those who are saying restructuring what we have presently is not working. If you were to pick which one would come first, is it to restructure Nigeria in the manner of getting rid of aspects of our constitution, that those who say that constitution does not really reflect the will and the aspiration of the Nigerian people, or you just go straight for state policing? Which one would you pick first?
I think for me, I'd rather go for restructuring. If we're able to do that and take care of all the lapses, believe me, that will change a lot of things for this country for the better. So I choose restructuring.
What does restructuring mean for you, Governor Lawal?
Well, you just look at the 1999 Constitution and look at issues where, in fact, for example, issue of security. If state governors will have their own security or control over the security situation, most of these criminalities will not take place in most of the state, because we all want to live in peace. There's nothing like peace. There's no price to peace. Whatever you do, if you don't have security, it's basically nothing. There will be no meaningful development without security. And these are the challenges we're facing, especially in a state like Zamfara State and other 7 northern states in the country. Kaduna, Katsina, Niger, Sokoto, to some extent, Kebbi. Maybe Kano, they are relatively okay, and Jigawa. But at least the 5 northern states, we are in a serious mess when it comes to security.
All right. Just give
And
me
that
a
is
moment.
something that
Governor Lawal, we are hoping that after tonight, that mess will be cleared because we have a congregation of some of the best minds in our country tonight in this room, and hoping that with all of the expertise that are abound here, we might be able to have a solution. Don't forget, we have Honorable Babajimi Benson here, who is the chair of the House Committee on Defense, and we might be able to get some insight. Of course, the Chief of Defense Staff has since joined us also. But just give me a moment, Governor. I'll come back to you because, yeah, a few people will also like to find out a few things from you in the course of the program. So let me quickly come. You've said a lot of things, Honorable. DICON, how we are locally trying to get things done, the new bill that the president has signed. But those are activities we want some kind of traction, whether those options are giving us the right solution. DIG, if you have the opportunity, and you heard what the governor said there, if you were in his shoe, what would you do differently as a police officer?
Policeman representing the Inspector General of Police. So the reality is that with the advent of this President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR government, there is police reform. The IGP who had come had his own strategy. And that strategy is he upped his game in terms of doing what we call gap analysis to identify where we lack capacities. And those capabilities and capacities were now being tackled. And in each state command, as of today, I'm telling you that there is weekly training on need basis. If there are things that this particular local government police divisional headquarters need, they train them on that. Apart from that, we up our game in terms of intelligence. And there is intelligence sharing between the security services, the military, and we're doing well. And I can give you a very simple example. Kaduna Abuja Road. Look at what is ongoing. There is what we call high visibility policing. The military is there, the police is there in each particular point. We're not harassing anybody, but we're just moving. If there is need for us to check, we check. So you can see that in reality, I have seen some of the statistics you have shown. That is their own statistics. I am the DIG in charge of research and planning. Based on my statistics, with the coming of this IG last year and this year, there is a reduction in crime. I have the records.
What data can you use to support that?
I have my own data. And if I am aware, I will have come with the data physically, you will see it. It's something that has been passed to Cybercom, which is already there. There is a reduction in crime and is based on intelligence-led policing and a problem-solving approach using high visibility policing. And again, as I told you, the IG had already approved. We have done the crime mapping of this country. We have done the crime pattern analysis, and we are now analyzing it. We are coming up with a strategy that will now address our peculiarities based on this, our 774 local governments, based on the distribution of the policemen nationwide. Additionally, again, His Excellency said he doesn't have the full control. Yes, he is the chief security officer administratively. Operationally, the army is controlling the equipment and the manpower. The commissioner of police is operating the equipment and the manpower based on the constitution. The reality is that if he passed any information to any of the security agency, I'm assuring you that I was commissioner of police in Imo State. I know what it is. Once His Excellency passed that information, it's mandatory for the police, for the military to carry out such operations, and we deal with the situation. Since he said he has the information, let him pass it over to the security agents, the police, the military, and see whether it will not be done. That is the reality on ground.
So you are saying that you have enough men?
We have already talked about issue of manpower.
You do not have enough manpower.
370,000 policemen is not in line with UN ratio of 1 to 450. But at the same, again, if you can see, we are now recruiting and we are now replacing those people. Very soon there will be training of 10,000 policemen. It will be followed by additional 10,000. And then 10,000 again. The president has graciously approved 30,000. That will add value. Again, it's not even issue of number. It's issue of capacity. And the IG had already identified that, and he has given that order. There is 3 days training, 5 days training, 7 days training. As I told you, we identify our local problems, use local solution, we solve it. And that is exactly what we are doing. Issue of funding, issue of lack of manpower, all is, by the way, what is it that we are doing now with the manpower that we have? And that is exactly what I told you we are doing, and it's yielding result. Again, when we have kidnapping in one particular area, because of fear of crime, because of social media, you will see that people will start blowing it up. The press will blow it up as if the whole country, everywhere there is kidnapping. Whereas it's actually one place, and because of the social media issue, it is blown up. There is no society that there will be no crime.
So you're
but
saying
it has
that
been reduced.
You're saying the insecurity we have in Nigeria is not the way we see it.
Of course,
It's
there is
different
insecurity. Of course, there is insecurity all over. You have already shown it in the media here. But the reality is that it's not as it is. It's issue of fear of crime. And that is what we are trying to do to assure the members of the community that that is not so. Example now, Kaduna Abuja Road, I'm giving you example of that same road. When last did you hear that there is kidnapping or there is banditry attack? And when there is that banditry attack, only once. Once in Abuja here, there was an issue at, what do you call it, Dawaki Road. Only one issue. But the whole country take it up as if the whole country is having the same kidnapping issue. It's a fear of crime, which we are trying our best to ensure that we reduce it and draw it down to the barest minimum.
Right.
And we urge the people to report whatever incidents they have instead of them to go into social media to blow things up.
Dr. Omale, do you agree with it?
Well, generally when you have a security summit and you invite anybody still in service, they are constrained by what they can say. The truth is that there is a problem, of manpower, but it's in a different way. For example, let me give you an example. We say we have 370,000 police officers. The security summit by the House done a few years back, one of the recommendations was that the police should commence a program of civilianization of the police, as it is done all over the world. What do I mean? I went to visit a DIG, some months back, and he offered me, what do you want to eat? I said, pounded yam. The next thing is Sergeant Lewis. He said, yes, sir. Do pounded yam for my guest. His chef was a police officer. Now, couldn't that be done by a civilian? So the point I'm making here is the civilization of, by the way, the military have the same problem too. All over, if you go to Metropolitan Police headquarters in London, about 25% of their staff are not police officers. Work that can be done by people who are not police officers should be done by them so that our trained officers can be at the forefront. But they are chefs, they are drivers, they are cooks, they are washermen. So giving them more power, more manpower is not the solution if they are not properly utilized.
But you have lived and you understand the UK system, for example. What do you think that we have here? What do you think they have there that is working that we do not have here?
Okay. Number one thing is that if you ask me this question in 1974, it would be an easier question to answer. Because by around that 1974, we had the Nigerian police force that was doing the A to Z of what it's supposed to do. After the coup, or the Muritala coup, that was the beginning of the cannibalization of Nigerian police. The military government then blamed the police for not finding out the intelligence about the coup. So what did they do? They excised what they call the special branch of the police out of the police. And that later formed what they call the NSO, what that's today's SSS, was carved out of the police. Since then, several other agencies have been carved out of the police. So when you are talking about the police right now, they have the thankless job of dealing with core criminality. They don't have the resources to do it. And all the other things, all the other things that police do in other countries are being done by other agencies in this country. So that is the issue of overlapping mandates of different security agencies. They compete rather than cooperate. And more importantly, there is no legal framework in this country that compels any security agencies to share intelligence. I know the NSA is the coordinator of national intelligence, and best practice say they do it. But I've been in meetings where, I'm not going to say which one, and the agency said, we're not sharing that with the police, we don't trust them. So the issue here is that these people are competing rather than cooperating among themselves. So one of the easiest things the president can do, for example, is to give out an executive order, making it a punishable act if an intelligence is not shared. Right now, if you don't share an intelligence, you've not committed any crime.
Well, in the United States, there is a Department of Homeland Security. And from the point you enter to the country, the intelligence about persons of interest circulates around most security agencies. Can we adopt that kind of technique?
Yeah, of course we can. See, the situation here is this. Take United States, a very good example. United States have about 18,000 police departments because everybody has police departments all over the U.S. But what happened when the Homeland Security Department was created was that a standardized storage format was created for all police forces in the US, such that then a batch program was created, whereby around midnight every night, the Department of Homeland Security harvests data from every police department in the country as a central hub. So if you commit a crime in Texas, in 24 hours, they will know in Washington that you committed a crime. We don't have that here in Nigeria. This is what I'm trying to say. Fragmentation and the competition means there is no visibility. The truth, look, the truth is the fact that you can come out of prison in Sokoto tomorrow and go and join the Nigerian police in Lagos, day after. They have no way of knowing unless you declare it yourself, because there's no central database, of these things. For example, as you enter prison, your fingerprints and data are taken. That's supposed to be sent to the police fingerprint department. Sometimes for 6 months, 8 months, police don't get anything from the prison. Look, we have problems. Fragmentation is a major problem. The left hand is not talking to the right hand, and we have so many. Look, we are talking of in England. If you are a civil servant and you steal, they call the police. Here we have ICPC, we have all kinds of, we've just cannibalized the whole system. And this is what makes the whole thing worse. This is it. There was a case in Kogi when the civil defense sued the police. They said the police was encroaching on their turf. The Court of Appeal, when they decided that case, said the Establishment Act for Civil Defense did not remove those powers from the police. Police still have the power to, let's tell all of them, drug crime, NDLEA, police still have power over that. Road safety, police still have power over that. EFCC, police still have the Financial Crimes Unit. So every of these cannibals that have been created out of the police still left the police with those powers. So the question now is, people now cherry pick who to call when they have a problem. Who do you have influence over? So we need to really do a comprehensive security sector reform in this country, whereby there's a bit more of harmonization, so that if one agency has, okay, you are talking about.
So you agree with Governor Lawal to say restructuring is one thing that we need.
Yeah, okay. You are mentioning private security firms earlier.
Right? Was fine, yeah.
Do you know the private security firms in this country? Who do you think controls and manages them? Civil defense, not the police. Police have they are regulated by civil defense. So if police needs information about private security, they have to go to civil defense to get it. Why are we fragmenting things? That is a problem. So we need, instead of dancing around all these issues we are doing, we are doing that, because if we don't think differently, we will continue this cycle of insecurity.
All right. Let me quickly. There is a major legal framework lacuna here, something, isn't it? And how do we get around it?
You see, yes, there's a lacuna with the law, but it isn't just about, it's not about the law. There are three fundamental things. Public safety or managing security is rooted in public trust. Earlier, the DIG referenced the aphorism, see something, say something, and do something. If our security agencies don't repose trust and confidence in citizens, there's no way citizens are going to share intelligence with you. And I think that if we think about solutions, the posture of our security agencies need to change. Nigerians feel insecure. You don't want to know the number of Nigerians who on a daily basis have their family members kidnapped. And when they report those cases, the response from some of the security agencies is not just demoralizing, but it's just heartbreaking. And so our security agencies need to inspire confidence. And there's no need to gaslight citizens. Admit that there are challenges. Tell us the effort that you're making, and we will support you. But not look at Nigerians in the face and say that the challenges of insecurity are not much, because they are the ones feeling it. The second deals with extrajudicial killings. And I talked about structural injustice earlier, and it's actually two ways. I think for a summit like this, we need to condemn acts by either Nigerians or non-Nigerians who are killing our security agencies. In the last couple of months, it is un-Nigerian to see how our military and police officers are being killed. It happened in Delta. It happened in Benue. These people are human beings. They have families. And so if Nigerians, or non-Nigerians are rising up against our security forces, we have to condemn it and take action. In the same vein, our security agencies also need to ensure that extrajudicial killings also stop, because there are structural injustices that are driving these kinds of behavior in the public space. The third point deals with this whole question about, you call it devolution of powers or centralization of powers. And I agree with the governor to an extent that there is need to restructure. The Honorable talked about state police. I don't think that there is an opposition to the whole concept of state police. The big issue is around the operationalization. Because he referenced the 1999 Constitution that devolves from the 1979 Constitution. Every constitution has got a philosophy that underpins it. And for the 1979 Constitution, it was about centralization of power. The philosophy then was that if you centralize power and centralize control, you're able to keep the component units in place. It's how many years down the line, and society has shifted. So there is great need to devolve power, but there have to be some mechanisms that limit the absolute exercise of the powers. So when you say state police, about the operational independence, how do you ensure the operational independence of the police? Who appoints, yes, say the commissioner of the police and the DPOs? How are they going to be funded? And there's a semblance of that because governors still fund police. They buy them cars at the state level. So in terms of funding, it appears there's some measure of resources at that level. But when you say control, I am averse to absolute and full control. There has to be limits to the exercise of that power as we think about state police. Yeah. The last critical point, and I'm glad that the brilliant gentleman who is doing well with the Army and the Defense is here. We need more boots on the ground. I think in the last few years, we've seen some airstrikes that have come with collateral damage. And we have to think about how do we remedy, those situations, because communities are decimated, lives are lost, and we need to address that, because when you do that, you build trust and confidence in people, because if you abandon those communities, you breed resentment with the state. And so even when security agencies are calling Nigerians to support insecurity, Nigerians just feel you guys are in your own echo chamber because you do not relate with some of the realities that we face. And my call to security agencies, yes, the breed of, the service chiefs that were appointed by the president seem to be the best, seem to have a sense of the issues, but you need to communicate more with Nigerians. Because what Nigerians go through on a daily basis, the kind of insecurity, even access to justice, if you go to the police stations, go and see the number of cases that people report in police stations. Because the insecurity is in the land. So right. I think these are some of the issues that we need to address.
Thank you so much, Something. We have since been joined by the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa. Thank you so much indeed. There's so much to talk about tonight. But I will allow you some kind of opening statement on what would you say from the defense point of view. Of course, the man that superintends and does from the House of Reps is here, Honorable Jimmy Benson. But from the operational point of view, can you tell us what is the major issue? The military is now so much involved in internal policing. It does look like you're being taken away from your primary assignment and you are doing secondary and leaving the primary. What would you say is your major problem military-wise?
Thank you very much. I'm really very happy to be here, and it's good to be with this forum today. Well, I think as Nigerians, first and foremost, we need to take ownership of what's going on in the country. And when I say ownership, it is not the time for us to start trading blames on who to do it. We are dealing with asymmetric warfare, which is a new kind of warfare. It's different from the conventional term. And that's what we want to make very clear. Conventional warfare is between country to country. Now, asymmetric warfare, you are dealing with non-state actors, people you don't know, people that are your own. I give you some examples. Sometimes when we go on cordon and search operations, the same village you get in, they hide the weapons, touch them, they don't have anything, and you proceed. And they dig out these weapons and fire you from the rear. It is difficult because you don't even know who is your enemy. Everybody is an enemy. There's no front. Everywhere, and is a front as much as possible. Now, the challenges we're having is that understanding. I'm happy that it is changing. And if you see from what the armed forces and the police are doing now, we are being very people-centric in our approach because we understand that asymmetric warfare has to do with the people. Wherever we are protecting, wherever we're guiding, wherever we're operating, if we don't have the buy-in of the people, then there's a big challenge. And that's the problem. Now, why do we have challenges in the country? It did not start now. It has started since. My advice always is no country should allow asymmetric warfare to commence. It is difficult to eradicate. Why? You are dealing with ideology. And once you have that ideology built in, it's difficult because you see the person, you don't know what he's thinking about. You don't know what is in his mind. We have seen people that we have told them they're still telling us that we are wrong and they are right, as it is. So we need to come together as a country to be able to tackle this, and it should be nipped in the bud for every country, I advise.
CBS.
Yes.
It's almost 20 years that the military has been in the Northeast.
Yes.
Have you been able to win the war?
15 war. Well, it's not. That's why I'm saying asymmetric warfare is not. The only time you know that you've won the war is when there's total restoration of civilian authority. Total. When everybody is in. And I can tell you, I was the theater commander in Operation Hatinkai for 19 months. By the time I left there, we had over 75,000 that have surrendered. Now we have over 120. To tell you that we are succeeding. For us to know that it is total, one of the areas where we have challenge, the issue of good governance. Asymmetric warfare has a direct flux to do with good governance. Why? If your people can't eat, if they're unemployed, these are recipes that will always have where you have people that want to own up. On average, on a daily basis, all the theater operations we have, we take out over 600 bandits, terrorists, insurgents on weekly basis. But I tell you, over 2,000 are coming in. And why is that so? We have population, they can from everywhere. If you move into rural areas, we don't have roads. Where my men have the greatest challenge is IEDs, because there are no road infrastructure. So those are the areas that we have, and that's why this war is an all-society approach.
So it's not time yet for the military to leave the Northeast?
No, like I said, it's an ongoing operation. We are doing the best we can, together with the police and all that. But what we're calling is the buy-in of Nigerians. Let us stop this aspect of saying it's a military or it's a security. No. It is everybody's responsibility. Until you protect what you love. Until Nigerians start loving Nigeria. I mean, you see people coming and castigating the president or castigating the nation. As a whole, you are not doing anybody any good. And again, the power of words in what you say. Efforts are being made. For the past 1 year, things have actually improved greatly. We are not where we are. It's not where we want to, but I'm sure we're moving towards. Where we have issues, equipment that we want to use, because we don't produce what we need, is a major challenge.
But we understand that the DICON law...
That is what is happening now. Yes, the process is on now.
But there are local fabrication and...
The process is on. We're also processing them, and that's what we're doing.
But it's not enough.
Definitely it's not enough. We have a population of over 200, a land mass of over 900,000. It's not easy. The whole of Sambisa alone is more than some European countries as a whole. The whole of Niger State. Niger State takes almost 10% of Nigerian land mass. It's massive. Now, over time, we left the forest empty. Border management has not been too good. These are areas where these guys took advantage of and they're using. And that's why I said good governance does a lot in mobilizing the people, the citizens, to understand that, yes, this is my country. I'm ready to die for my country. And that's why it's key. How do we get our leadership? Critical. We must find leaders that are really committed. Committed in the sense that Nigeria must grow, Nigeria must develop. And that's why some of the security challenges we're having, some of them are mostly political, some are economic, some are social. Now, take you through the trajectory of criminality. Once acts of criminality, there's no that is criminal. Once it starts with criminality, it gets to robbery, it moves up insurgency. Now, in them and they can't operate, the next thing is to criminality, and that's why you get into banditry, and because it's social effects. People are looking for money. I'm sure you have read where family members are kidnapping family members. In fact, we have seen a situation where an individual kidnapped himself. All for what? To make money. So that's why it is. The society must develop beyond that. And sometimes when I hear people trying to compare with America, we are not America. We are different people. Why is the Chinese proceeding? Chinese understand that you must understand your environment. Every law you want to create, understand who you are. It guides you. Because we're different. Our cultures, our traditions, our distance are different. But we seem to carry everything hook, line, and sinker. It's America. No. We need to develop as a nation.
Serious,
Yes.
just a moment. Because I know there are about 4 people in the room that are standing by. If you could go to your microphone so that we can take some questions now. But quickly, your de-radicalization mechanisms and some of the efforts in getting the former Boko Haram insurgents, those who said they have repented, and that those who have questioned your system. And I'd like to ask you, does it work? Has it worked?
It is working very well.
Initially,
I was a commander when it started. We were the ones that started. And every process we did, we worked together with the state because the state had the authority on ground. Before it started, when we communicated with them, they were willing to surrender. The state were the one that actually took the mantle, and we followed up. Everyone that surrendered came first to the security forces that were closest to them. They were disarmed. We got the DSS to profile them. The state government provides the management and administration of those people, and we took them to their camps. We were able to separate them. We sorted them out. We have, what we realized that not all of them are combatants. That's one key area. There are some of them that were conscripted. Some were forced. In those days, when they attack a village, they gather everybody and take you. Some they were enslaved, they were used as farmers, laborers, and whatever. So we're able to sort those ones. The main ones that were the actual operators were kept separately. And what is being done is some of them now working together with the victims, because it is critical. Most times we tend to forget the victims, concentrating more on the perpetrators because we want peace. We don't want that kind of peace. We have had the operation, we have operated in Sierra Leone, in other countries. We've seen how it is. The tendency is you concentrate more on the perpetrators and forget the victims. So we always carry the victims. The communities were the ones that before anybody is allowed to go back, the communities will decide, they determine that yes, this person had nothing to do with it. Because the good thing again for Borno is everybody, they themselves. So it was a lot easier for us to do. And then we now use the issue of the civilian jail. Why is important? Because I heard the Zamfara state governor was talking about it. Why it's different in Borno state is that it was properly carried out. We had the communities were the ones who identified the youths, the positive youths, the good youths that really loved the country. They were profiled, they were brought out. The DSS profiled them. The military gave them some little training with the mandate to protect their communities. That was the mandate, not to attack anybody, but to protect their communities. And that's why you see in Borno state that is working. Now, in other areas, if they want to implement, because of the differences we have in ethnicity, in tribes, and other things that have been there, if we don't handle it properly, by the time you have these groups together, they will start attacking other communities because they have already issues on the ground. And that's why it's dangerous.
Yeah. Serious. Let's take a breather. Stand by, everyone, because we have people in the room who are going to be asking questions, or we'll go on a commercial break. And when we return, it's going to be a more robust conversation. We have more people on the panel, and we have insights, lawmakers, policymakers, and of course, experts and executives who are going to be answering questions as to the major problem and solution to our security challenge in the country. We'll be right back, everyone, after this break. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on this special security summit hosted by Channels Television. Let's get back into the conversation. I told you earlier, it's going to be a robust conversation. And of course, I have some of our friends who are in the room. Let's get some views on some people who want to lend your voice and ask some questions. I know Mayowa Oluwabi is by the microphone. Mayowa, good evening. Go ahead. What are your views?
Good evening, everyone. Glad to be here. The security challenges has become a recurring decimal in our national life. And we believe that several talks and summits is not yielding results. What other strategies can be deployed to end this menace in Nigeria?
Thank you so much. What other strategies can be deployed? That's one. Let's get another person's view on our question quickly.
All right. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ruth Key. I am a criminologist and a security intelligence analyst. I understand that terrorist financing is one of the major core reasons that gives them the right to train, to recruit, and also carry out their terror activities. My question is, how do we tackle the rate at which terrorism is being financed in Nigeria? And secondly, how do we promote civil-military relationship, considering the recent happening here in Abuja, where some military men were being assaulted by Nigerians, civilians? Thank you.
All right. Interesting. Let's the next question.
Okay. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Sean, for the opportunity. Yeah, keep wondering.
Your name and what you do, sir.
Yeah, Celestino Kodele, Head of Programs, ActionAid Nigeria. Yeah, I keep wondering, you know, there have been discussion today and much have been talked about the number of security personnel with regards to police, about 370,000 or thereabout. But at the same time, when you see a single VIP, a politician, you look at the number of personnel following one person. So I just want to understand the rationale behind that. Then secondly, is looking at, you know, the increasing insecurity here across the country. Do you know that today some communities have been totally, you know, can no longer stay within their communities, you know, but at the same time, you know, there's increasing quantum of resources being spent on security, on defense. So what is actually happening? Is it the lacking political will to actually tackle this menace, or the lacking capacity, you know, within the security architecture? I would be glad if these questions are well responded to. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Celestine, do we have any more person who is standing by to speak before we get answers from this side? All right. Mr. Kenneth.
Yes, Kenneth.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening and happy Democracy Day. Seun, thank you very much for inviting me to participate at this security summit. So I'll make a comment on solution, then I'll ask a question. Once again, my name is Kenneth Sahaniku, Chairman, Obi Dairy Business Forum in Niger State. So in dairy, you have cows, and then you have a farm. So you have the issues relating to farmers, headers, clashes. So what did we do to ameliorate this problem in Bobi? What we did was to implement some kind of restricted open grazing model, where we had the cows kept in a particular open location, and when it is time to graze, those animals are moved to the restricted place where they graze. So that way, we avoided the issues around the cows just being allowed to move around and then grazed on people's farms. It was a very well implemented solution, and it worked very well. There was peace. The Senate today is looking at bringing up a law relating to open grazing, and some people are saying they don't want the issues around ranching. So it's important that we look at solutions that could be applied in peculiar situations. Where people do not want ranching, then you can bring in the restricted open grazing model. Where people do not want Ruga, then you can bring in the ranching model. This can be looked at so that we can avoid issues around farmers' headers clashes. Now to my question, Seun. At the outset of this administration, the government said that issues around food security is going to be part of the national security architecture. Well, to a large extent, the CDS is here, the representative of the IG is here, Chairman House Committee on Defense is here. I would like to know, what exactly does the government mean by food security is part of the national security architecture? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much indeed. I would like to get some responses from this side. And of course, I'd like to let everybody know that we're hoping that the executive governor of Kaduna State, Senator Obasani, might be joining us on this summit because he also has peculiar security situation on his hand and is someone who is passionate about solutions also. But his principal private secretary, Professor Bello Ayuba, is here with us. Maybe at some point we might be able to get a Kaduna perspective to the issue of insecurity. But let me allow, I'm being told that Mr. Dr. Kabiru Adamu has since joined us virtually. And of course, the governor of Zamfara State is still with us. But maybe I should allow Dr. Kabiru Adamu to quickly speak to some of the issues raised here. Dr. Adamu, thank you so much for your patience and thank you so much for joining us on this summit. Give us an idea of how we can go about resolving some of these issues. We heard what other strategies that we need to take as a people in resolving some of the, since some of these strategies are not working. Do we find some other strategies? The issue of terrorism financing, the issue, what is happening in Abuja. You heard some of these questions. Would you please go ahead and speak to some of them?
Thank you very much, Seun. And again, a lot has been covered, but there are a couple of areas that I would strongly urge that because of the relevance of this summit, we look into. The Chief of Defense Staff mentioned governance. And in that regard, I would like us to look at the root causes, the drivers of insecurity that are essentially driven by bad governance. Time will not allow me to go into all of them, but the one I would narrow down on is addressing the grievances that exist in Nigeria at the moment. Those grievances are, they festered to a point where it's very easy for anyone who wants to cause whatever. It could be insurgency, it could be terrorism, it could be criminality, to recruit from those that are aggrieved. And so the mechanisms that we have in place for addressing those grievances, we need to look into them. And in that regard, the role of the legislature is critical. The legislature is probably the closest arm of government to the people. And if they open up their doors, and in fact, function in the manner that they are supposed to function, then they would go a long way. The second one is the role of the governors. They are also extremely close to the people. They, more than the federal government, they can address those root causes effectively. Second point I would like to hammer on is access to justice. There is no part of the country that, I mean, we have operations in 36 states of the Federation, 774 local governments. And when you see the complaints coming up from citizens regarding justice, you know that if we're going to move forward, then that is one area that we need to move ahead with quickly. And I'm very delighted that this current administration, not too long ago, about 2 months ago, a summit was held by the Ministry of Justice and several other persons within that arm of government, the judiciary, to move forward with regards to the challenges on access to justice. So I'm hoping that we'll see traction in that regard. The third point I would like to emphasize is accountability, both operational accountability and then financial accountability. There is no sector at the moment where money is being spent like the security sector. In fact, just a few days ago, I added the provision for health and education in our budget, and security is more than those two critical sectors. Now, that is at the federal level. If you go to the state level, they also spend on security. Now, what mechanism do we have in place for monitoring that spending so that we make sure that spending is actually going towards reducing the security challenges we have? And to that extent, I'm very delighted we have a member of the House of Rep seated there with us. The oversight function that the House of Rep and the Senate can play in terms of monitoring that spending is crucial and important in improving security within the country. So to that extent, I think separation of powers, and I'm sure Samson Itudu could probably speak better in that regard than me, separation of powers, especially in this area of security, where we see better oversight by our legislators on the security sector players would probably help us in improving security. And then in conclusion, there are provisions within our constitution that I don't see us complying with at the moment. As an example, we have several councils, the the National Security Council, the National Defense Council, National Police Council. In the last 12 months, and of course 8 years before that, I've not seen those councils sitting down like they should. There is a reason why they're there in the Constitution. They are meant to serve a purpose. So when they don't sit and when they don't follow up on some of these issues, we have the challenges that we have at the moment.
Fantastic. I'd like to, I don't know if Honorable or anyone in the panel would like to answer some of the questions that were raised. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'd like to also commend the CDS for his boldness. There's an elephant in the room, and that's good governance. He did make mention of it. From the parliament side, we've done our best. We understand that one of the key things that underpins good governance has to do with power. We have removed power from the exclusive list and placed it in the concurrent list. So why are the governors not generating powers? Power. Power is something that can give the locals, the local governments, everyone hope. It's an enabler. It gets you employed, it gets you engaged, and the devil finds work for the idle hands. If there's power throughout the length and breadth of Nigeria, insecurity will reduce by 50%. The tools are with the governors. They should up their games and start setting up power plants. They should have an energy mix. There are areas where you use hydro, there's areas where you use gas. Everything has been domiciled with them. That's one. We've passed bills for local government autonomy. We send it to the state assemblies. It comes back not passed. The legislature, federal, we've done our bit. So we need to hit the nails on the head. The governors need to be more accountable. They need to empower their local governments more. I always recall when the 9/11 happened. A mayor in America, Mayor Giuliani, there's a local government chairman. Yes, he did so well. He took over the recovery and everything in that disaster. He even ran for the US presidency, right? But here, our local government chairmen are put under the governors. They don't want them to thrive. And show me a society that doesn't have a thriving local government administration. I will see insecurity. I will see hopelessness. So the citizens must also adopt the Super Eagles approach. Every time the Super Eagles play, you see the all society approach that the CDS is talking about. We all come together. But when it comes to how we are governed in the local, on the state, they are muted. So the parliament has done its best to pass legislation that will give more power to the grassroots. Here, the CDS also spoke about ungovernable spaces. The ungovernable spaces will be more governable if local government actors get more respect, get more funding from the governors.
But Honorable, there are those who disagree with you that the speed in which you pass the national anthem bill, if you can use the same speed to pass some very crucial bill or laws related to security, we will not be where we are today.
Sure. We passed the Police Reform Act with the speed of light. We passed the local government autonomy under the last president with the speed of light. We passed the unbundling of the power sector, putting it in the concurrent list with the speed of light. So there should also be citizenry advocacy. Why will the governor and the state assembly stifle something that would empower as many youths in particular as possible? Local government administration may be administration and autonomy is a step in the right direction that would at least reduce poverty, hopelessness to a barest minimum. We cannot always use security to kill poverty and hopelessness.
Thank you. You wanted to say something, Doc?
I mean, to buttress what Honorable Benson said, I did some research a few years back on, when insecurity was initially focused on the Northeast. That research showed that the amount of money that was getting to the local government in the Northwest was 3 times that the Northeast was getting. So I could see a nexus between the poor funding of local government in the Northeast generally and the better funding in the Northwest for the dichotomy at that time. So there is always this issue of ungoverned spaces. So the lack of opportunities, lack of presence of government in those local places feed these things. And it was as if the CDS read my script earlier when I talked about security not just being about the armed services. That it's got to be government policy, making sure they're not putting more people into the insecurity pool. And secondly, on the issue of state police, I like the way the Governor Zamfara was very pragmatic about it. State police is not a magic bullet that will solve our problem. Up until 1966, in this country, we had 3 layers of policing. The Nigerian police force, the regional police, and the local native police. It was scrapped because of corruption and abuse. So what I'm saying is, so people who are now talking about state police need to understand that we were there before. We scrapped it because it didn't work. So going strictly back to state police is not the solution if the governing environment and the structure doesn't work. So it has to be done in a pragmatic way. I think it's important.
So when the governor of Zamfara, because Honorable Benson is here, and I like to put him on the spot, I wish I could give Honorable Benson a chair right in the middle there. Because we want to live here today and perhaps give some insight on what you and your colleagues can do for Nigeria going forward. Because we see a situation where the right laws were being passed, Nigerians went out in the constitutional amendment, but those laws were killed when they got to the moment where the state assembly was supposed to give concurrence. And those laws died. Very good laws, but well, that's the beauty of democracy. And you imagine if Governor Zamfara says there are advantages and disadvantages to state police, but he said we need to restructure. In that sense, because I want Honorable Benson to be able to take that and take it to the National Assembly. What kind of restructuring are we really looking at in terms of fixing our constitution to help our security architecture?
Well, okay.
No. You.
Okay. Now, the issue here really, I think, is we're talking about fiscal restructuring, really, because the truth is that without going to specifics, some of the insecurity in some of the northern states in the last few months, based on sources, actually have been caused by some of the local vigilantes recruited by the governors that were being owed salaries by that state. So it's important for you to understand that, is it governors that are owing months in salaries to their civil servants that will now suddenly, be able to pay the police? So for state policing to work, it has to be part of a fiscal restructuring, where states have more resources to pay them. But if we are looking at the current financial settlement to states, and you're just giving them state police, there's going to be trouble because if you are talking of the president being autocratic in terms of handling the police federally, you are dealing with president plus 36 autocrats. So how are you going to handle that?
Yeah. Let me allow DIG. If we are to apply state policing with the structure that we are, you are the expert here. You have your hands right on the deck. What kind of state policing will work for you?
Before I talk on the issue of state police, let's go back to, in fairness, or in addition to what the honorable member has said, the National Assembly has done relatively very well by organizing a seminar, one-day seminar here in the same Ladukwali here, on local government autonomy, where the speakers of the 36th Federation were invited, and we held one-day seminar here on it, and that borders on good governance. Again, last week the IG permits me to go to Rwanda on a 2-day symposium on peace, security, and justice. So there is issue, if you look at what Dr. Garba has said, what the CDS has said, there is issue of access to justice, there is issue of good governance, there is issue of, security itself as a tool where everybody will participate and make sure that we work as a team and solve our problems. Now, when you come back to all these issues, you cumulate it together, you look at it holistically that, look, what we have on ground presently, there is need for a competence building, there is need for community engagement, there is need for ownership, there is need for inclusivity. Now, when you go on non-kinetic measures, which actually is what community policing is talking about, more proactive policing. It had been carried out in Jos, where the 56 ethnic groups are now joined together. They have community town hall meeting with the military and with the police. And we now find out exactly what are the challenges, what are the issues on ground, how do we solve those issues. So to me, issue of state police is for the federal government and the National Assembly to decide what they want. We are agents of government. If they want a state police and they come in, we are the professionals who will come in with a standardization, just like the CDS has said, screen it and come out with issues.
You are being political.
No, I'm being sincere to you.
The question here is, you are an expert. Does or will a state policing method, and I know that you've trained outside of this country.
Yes.
You know how things work in other climes.
Yes.
We are looking for solutions. And you're a Nigerian too. Tomorrow, if you remove this uniform, you will become one of us. But the question is, what will work? What do you think in your own mind? You're an operations person too.
What will
work for our system
in this country? Whether state police will work or federal
state police will work.
So the doctor has already talked about fragmentation. So what do you say about that?
Will state police work?
That's what I'm saying. What do you say about it? More fragmentation, or we go as it is? And then again, they have already talked about salaries. The state governments are owing salaries. So are we still going to have more fragmentations? Or are we going to strengthen what we have and then identify our problems, use local solutions, and solve it?
Honorable, you were going to say something.
We believe state police will work. We've also looked at, most states have huge bureaucracy, civil service. Everybody tells you they don't like to retrench. A civil service should have some should have 20,000, they have 40,000. So there's a way whereby somebody also here spoke about civilization of the security apparatus. So you can shift a couple of staff of your civil service, shift them to the state police when you start, train them on little clerical blah, blah, blah things. Then the additional people you add will be the operational people. So you're not spending that amount of money, that crazy amount of money that people are thinking of. So I believe that state police is a step in the right direction. One of the, like I said earlier, Section 14.2, the primary function of government is to protect lives, security, and welfare of the people. First priority is security. 400,000 policing 200,000 people is not acceptable. State police can help bridge that gap. And like I said earlier, if you police have 400,000 staff or members, the private security firms that exist in Nigeria have over 1 million security personnel working with them. They're trained in one way or the other. So the sooner we smell the coffee and know that these guys that were not employed into the armed forces are being employed by pseudo security companies that are licensed by NCDC. So there should be a competition to find those people and get them engaged by the Nigerian state that critically needs them at this time.
All right.
Thank you.
Samson, I'll come to you because I want us to look practically of we've been mouthing state police. How do we go about it? CDS, I'm coming to you in a moment because I need you to be able to speak to one of the issues on terrorism and its financing because that's a major issue in our country. But let me go to Governor of Zamfara because I'd like to get your final thought. Practically speaking, you've hit the nail on the head, but I want you to hit it even deeper. Now, you've spoken about what works from the point of view of a governor. Give us an understanding of where we need to go. You told us about the advantages and disadvantages of state policing, but what do we do now? I see a situation that even when we do not declare a state of emergency on security, the situation is declaring itself as a state of emergency. But Governor Lawal, where do we go from here, practically speaking?
Sharon, let me say this. We realize there's a problem and the system needs total overhauling. If we talk about state policing right now, let us even understand what are the issues the police are facing. You will agree with me that there are too many problems, ranging from poor salary, training, and so many other things. Look at what they go through right now. I mean, you see a policeman, you feel bad based on even how he lives. How does he even survive? So how do you expect a total commitment from such officers? Like I said from the beginning, despite all these challenges, they have the capacity to handle so many criminalities. But the system needs total overhauling. Now, if you go back to state policing, where do you even get the finances to be able to do that? And let me even ask DIG that is there now. Let's even talk of forensic lab. How many forensic labs do we have in the country? Just leave that alone. I mean, take that alone for the state. There are states right now that are battling to settle civil servant salaries. And you're talking about additional manpower. It's not just about the salary. It comes with other components. Where do you have the money to buy the weapons? Where do you have the money to buy other equipment? And so on and so forth. So the reality is there is a need to overhaul the system as a whole. Let us understand what the challenges are and be able to deal with those challenges. That is the way forward as far as I'm concerned.
Right, but,
otherwise, we'll continue to make noise here, but we're not going to make significant progress as far as that is concerned. So it is something that we really need to think twice, analyze the situation, look at the advantages as well as disadvantages. But the system needs total overhauling.
So it comes back to the restructuring that you mentioned earlier. And I imagine that President Bola Tinubu was one of those who advocated for some kind of rejigging of our system before as a pro-democracy activist. And now that he's president, maybe his political party had done what they call there's some kind of led by former Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna State. They've looked at how they can rejig the constitution without necessarily calling it restructuring. But if I may ask you two straight questions, sir. There is some kind of security outfit in Zamfara State that is sponsored by the state, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you able to arm them?
Yes, we did.
Is that kind of state policing in your own thinking?
It's not completely state policing because they have limitations. There are certain things they don't do. What they do right now is just to complement the conventional security in terms of operations. These are guys that live in their local government. They understand the trend better than conventional police, conventional security. So, and they don't go alone for any operations. What they do whenever there's going to be an operation, it has to be with the conventional security, especially the military. So there are two different things. It's beyond that.
Well, how many do you have? Are there more than the number of police that you have on the ground?
Right now I have 2,645 community protection guards in Zamfara State as a first batch. We're still thinking of going for the second batch, but of course we have to fine tune a lot of things. They need training. They need so many other things. And it's not easy on the states. But we have to do it because, that is just the way we can, provide some kind of comfort for our people.
So the reality of state policing is already dawning. You are already feeling the pinch already in terms of funding this outfit, isn't it?
Yeah, I know how much it costs, even for their uniforms and every other equipment. It's not that easy. And that is why I really pity the police because, they are doing their best. But the reality is they are not taken care of unless something drastic is done. Let's even understand what the issues are. So long as we don't address those issues, we'll just keep going round and round and round, and we will not find solutions to some of these things.
So if you were President Bola Tinubu today, what would you do differently?
Well, like I said, the first thing is we need to restructure because there are issues there that need to be clearly defined. Unless we're able to do that, we'll continue to make noise here and we're not going to make significant progress as far as the security of this country is concerned. Like I said from the beginning, the military, the police, the civil servants, they have the capacity to take care of some of the challenges. But it's beyond that.
Governor, before I allow you go, please, I want everyone to look at this poll question and how Nigerians responded to it on Twitter. The question that we asked earlier before we started this program, and we asked Nigerians, what would you say is the security agency's biggest challenge? We say, is it lack of manpower? Secondly, we say, is it corruption and political will, or funding, or lack of intelligence? And this is how Nigerians polled. They say 82% of the Nigerians who polled says it's corruption and political will. The ones that follow say lack of intelligence, and another one, funding and lack of power. But corruption and political will. And I'd like you to give us your own final thoughts in this sense. How do you react to some of the views of those who polled, who think the corruption and lack of political will is the security agency's major problem?
From my opening remarks, I told you the major challenge is the political will. And look at the answer by Nigerians, 82% political will.
So you're right.
So much. Yeah, political will is there. That has been the issue. If there is no political interference in all these things, believe me, it's just a matter of time. We will be able to solve all these security challenges in the country. So, political will, political will, political will.
I see something in between the lines in some of the words that you have said. And when you say interference, you've said that you've used that word over and over again. Interference from where? By who?
He who wears the shoes knows where it hurts. And that is why I'm telling you there's so much political interference. These guys should be allowed to do their work. They're professionals. They have the capacity and they can do it. Let's allow them to work. Let's allow them to function. Take care of the security situation. That is what we're asking.
Do we know the people who are interfering? Because I imagine that the lives of Nigerians are at stake.
Sharon, let me still say, they know who they are.
let's allow, the security operatives to do their work. I don't start mentioning names here right now, but there's so much political interference. Please allow them to work.
Thank you, Governor Lawal, for your thought there. And we do, whoever you are, Governor Lawal has not mentioned your name, but whoever you are, for the sake of our nation and for the lives and livelihood of our people, let the security agents breathe. The president has said that before the election, and we are hoping. Thank you so much, Governor Lawal, the executive governor of Zamfara State. We continue the conversation, of course. We have a few more people who are going to be asking questions. I'll allow the CDS to comment on the terrorism funding issue that was raised by the lady.
Thank you very much. The funding is critical. Trails the money. That's always the issue. Now we have areas of funding both locally and internationally. For the local aspects, they have a means of, they have their followers that they've empowered that contribute money to what they are doing. They go through banditry, some of them get benefit from taxes. All these things they do from within, the kidnappings is all part of it where they raise funds. And then externally, we have external people that equally support them. The issue of IPOB. There's a lot of funding that comes in there.
CDS.
Yes.
Are you worried? Because you know an operation,
of course,
you have
definitely.
a special operation on the sit-at-home IPOB situation in the Southeast.
Yes.
But some of the elements and the leaders of these groups are outside of the country.
Yes. We have repeatedly complained about the issue of Simon Epa. He is in Finland. The Finnish government are giving him all the support, and he's doing what he's doing. Comments he's making, people are being killed, and nothing is being done. And this is democracy. If the European Union is the one supporting democracy, and this is happening, and they're not taking action, then they don't mean well for Nigeria. We have said that in clear terms. We need to diplomatically find means of getting him out of whatever it is that he's doing. He must be arrested, he must be prosecuted. Look at it from the other way. Assuming he is in Nigeria and he's doing that to the Finnish government, you think the European Union will allow that happen? They definitely will not. So why are they allowing him to do what he's doing? And people like him that are doing such things. Trailing the funds is very critical. I know a lot of the First Central Bank, the NFIU, are doing a lot in tracking down how the funds flow. And this is part of what we call the oxygen of terrorism, is logistic, leadership, and funding. Your ability to be able to tackle those things and trail them and deny them the ability to operate will kill terrorism with good governance. Now, you can see the statistics that came in, political will. And political will is not from federal government alone. The states are critical. For me, if I look at the aspects, what do we need? Let's look at solutions. Do we have a comprehensive database as Nigerians? If you go to Chad, Cameroon, and Niger, once you enter, they know you are not a Nigerian. And they have this duty as citizens. Once you speak, the man knows you are not a Nigerian. The next thing he tells you, if he's a taxi driver, he tells you his vehicle has a problem. He's calling the gendarmes. Before you know it, the gendarmes are coming to ask you, what are you doing in our country? We don't have that. That's what we're saying is a holistic thing that we have to do. Every Nigerian has a role to play in what's going on ground. And then we must look at these things and take it up as a challenge. It's not a military or a security aspect. Everybody has a role to play in this. And that's what I'm saying. We need to develop a database.
Why is it difficult? We have a database. And I can mention 10 agencies of government.
That is why it's a problem. That's why it's a problem.
Do you remember that former President Goodluck Jonathan had a meeting at the State House and asked all of the data acquiring agencies to put their data together up until tomorrow? That has not happened.
I know the
FRSC will collect your data, immigration will collect your data, local government will collect your data, FRS will collect your data, NIMSI will collect your data. In fact, they will almost ask for the ID of your kidney if you want to get things done in the bank, but yet nothing is being used or done with the data. And you imagine that terrorists will come into our country. We are not able to track them and trace them with mobile telephone that if as an ordinary citizen you want to register, it becomes a major problem. As CDS, why is it difficult that we are not able to, for security purposes, not able to house our data in one place?
Well, I think that's a political question you're asking. I'm not a politician, I'm a military man, so I can only deal with military issues. But you see, what I'm saying is that the truth about it is that as a nation, we need to build up. And how do we do that? Census. If we can have just one comprehensive census that will carry out for all Nigerians in the world, not only in Nigeria or in the entire world, build up that capacity, and then every other thing we do can leverage on that. When you go abroad and things happen and they get people arrested, they're not using witchcraft. They have data. So we should have such things. And like I said, the state government was talking about political will. It starts from the states. The states have a lot they can do. Why are our local governments not working? So you see, in a state with 20 local governments, everybody is looking at the governor. It makes it very difficult. But if we have 20 local government and 20 local government chairmen that have the capacity as being governors, because that's also another issue. Sometimes you have the local government chairman, the man doesn't even know why he's there. So it becomes an issue. So we must look at how do we develop our leaders, especially local government. Growing up, we knew local governments were working. You go there, you see the veterinary working, you see them doing roads and all this. And so it builds up that capacity and it checkmates all these activities right from the board before it grows to become a monster. But we allow it until when it becomes a monster and then it becomes difficult curtailing it. And those are the issues we have to go on ground. And then, like I said, justice, equity, and fairness. Every Nigerian must have that sense of belonging wherever he is. I had the privilege, I was born in Sokoto, I grew up in Sokoto. I had that privilege, it was the most wonderful place I ever wanted to. And I still am very proud to have come from that area. And it has given me, with the opportunity the government has given me in Nigeria. And that's why in the military, it gives us that ability to look at these things dispassionately. We look at how do we create solution? How do we provide solution on this? The challenges we're going cannot be solved by military solution or security solution. It is holistic. Most of it, non-kinetic. And non-kinetic has to do with good governance. It starts from the states. The states must take ownership of this and drive it.
Yes, there are a few people who are asking questions about the errors being made, some tragic errors made by the military in some civilian territories. Is there an apology that the military is willing to take to give to the Nigerian people?
No, definitely.
Tonight, because innocent people were just living their lives. And
no, I think we've said it over time. When the Tudunbiri issue happened, we came out clearly and said it was a mistake. It was a professional mistake. Yes, we don't want to give a reason why it happened. We knew why it happened sometimes because, again, if you look at the history, it is not just that it was deliberately done. It was just that there were circumstances that happened that made it happen.
Have we learned our lesson?
A lot. We've gone back to training.
Is anybody being held accountable?
We have our court martials on ground going doing that. We followed through the legal system directly. We're a professional army. We have done things even outside Nigeria. So why not in our own country? We go through these things. And let me tell you, once there are operations ongoing, they are bound to be mistakes because we're human beings. Sometimes you fire a weapon, the weather affects it. You can't control that.
Serious. I'm worried, and a lot of people, I'm responding directly to questions people are asking online. There are those who are worried that the accusation and allegations against men of the Nigerian Navy on issues of piracy, that they are in cahoots and they are in connivance with some of these people who are stealing our crude and not allowing our economy to grow.
Maybe in the past.
It's not happening now again?
Maybe in the past. Now, nothing is 100%. And we pick our recruits from the citizens, from the communities. So we're not bringing them from heaven or from somewhere. So whatever it is that is ongoing will also affect the armed forces. But we have a system that checkmates that. And that's why all our operations, we have standing court martials. Just recently, with court martials, some will jail them, we dismiss, we reduce them in rank. We don't entertain indiscipline for whatever reason.
I mean, are you able to tell Nigerians what they are doing? Because some of Nigerians are the ones that are bearing the brunt. But if those who are responsible are being dealt with, Nigerians deserve to know.
No, but I think on several occasions, even when I was in the theater in Maiduguri, we do a media chat where we pronounce what are the offenses committed and what actions have been taken. We do that in clear terms.
All right.
And if we get the police, the prison, they will tell you the military people that have been jailed for issues on that. We do that such.
All right. Give me a moment, everyone. We've since been joined by Pastor Ladi Thompson, someone who is also passionate about the nation's security. He joins us virtually. It's good to see you, Mr. Mr. Thompson, rather. Give us an idea. You've been listening to the conversation, and thank you so much for your patience. You're looking good, though. Happy Democracy Day. Give us an understanding. Where do we go from here? You and I have had conversation about our national security, but we are looking for solutions. That's why we are here tonight. From your own point of view, where you are standing, what solutions do you see?
Thank you very much, Sheung. And of course, I must commend the work that has gone on. But you and I know we've had this conversation that spanned 20 years. And what we're talking about right now here, I must commend the CDS. Between the CDS and Governor Lawal, they've given quite a practical assessment of what is available locally. However, Nigeria is dealing with, as I mentioned 20 years ago, an opportunistic hydra. Some of the things we've discussed here tonight, some of them are primary threats. Some of them are existential threats to the country. Some are secondary. Some are tertiary. Now, if we want to know what to do, we must separate the primary threats from the secondary. So I will say to you there are 4 things that we mentioned 20 years ago. There are 4 things that we mentioned 20 years ago that have to be taken care of. And it's up to you to decide whether they have been taken care of. Number 1, we said the architecture of thought of the Nigerian government must be 20 steps ahead of that of the enemy. The primary enemy, the greatest existential threat we are facing, which is terrorism. And we know that when it comes to architecture of thought, the greatest problem of the Nigerian, and not just the Nigerian, the African world, is the mathematization of inquiry. Number 2, we talked about the military more than 20 years ago, and we said the days of Clausewitz is gone, Trinity of War. And I like the fact that the CDS spoke about asymmetrical warfare. He spoke about hybrid threats. Now, maybe he didn't mention media as a force expander. But I know that as of 18 years ago, we had mentioned that the military contribution to the solution of this problem is not more than about 36%. So it is good that it is now that the military has come out to explain to the public that this thing doesn't have a military solution as the sole solution alone. Then number 3, I think he was the one, somebody earlier on mentioned the ideology. Now, the ideology is something that has to be tackled, that has not yet been tackled. Now, why are we saying this? Every single one of us here lives on 2 levels of life. There's the external that the law can control, and then there's the internal. Now, since this new form of war came into being, everybody knows that it is the ideas inside the hearts that have been weaponized. And when you mix a philosophy with a religious system and you mix it together, you have something explosive in hand. And you must come up with an ideology that will be national, that can checkmate that. Now, the 4th thing is the value system of the country. The greatest war going on all over the world right now is the war of narratives. Now, the value system is such that if an average citizen has nothing to lose, the value system is such that if in the engine room of the country, we still continue to allow ourselves to be ruled by partitions that were drawn up in 1914, then brother cannot be brother's keeper. And who is going to be ready to make sacrifices? I attended Ahmadu Bello University. I've moved and walked across Nigeria for God and country. It's a wonderful country, and I believe it will survive. But in closing, let me just say this. The most important factor that I think is missing in this conversation so far is what I call the glocal dimension. The fact that the threat that we're discussing here, the primary threat we're discussing here, as mentioned in snatches by the CDS, and somebody also who spoke about funding, we are facing a localized threat with a global dimension, global type of intelligence. Whether you're talking funding or you're talking opportunistic, you are dealing with something that is so intelligent that the architecture of thought within Nigeria cannot handle it alone. Now, listen to me. We have had former presidents who had sicknesses and diseases. who would have died if they did not reach out beyond the local degree of knowledge in the area of medicine when it came to the problems that they had. So there's nothing strange about the fact that this also has a global dimension to it that we must take care of if we are serious. Now, let me say this. If you remember Kaplan's book, 1994, The Coming Anarchy,
yeah.
If you ever looked at Henry Kissinger's World Order, published in 2014, and then mix it with Huntington's 1996 Clash of Civilizations, not to mention Francis Fukuyama, there is nothing surprising about what is going on in Nigeria today. Think tanks all over the world foresaw this. They've looked at it. Most nations of the world have readjusted. It's a war of narratives. They've readjusted to match this thing, and we are still waiting for Nigeria to realize that it is a global problem. Global, not local, but global. It's a localized space of a hydra. And part of the challenge we have right now, you heard Governor Lawal speaking diplomatically. The reason why Governor Lawal has to be diplomatic is because we are losing the war of narratives. If the war of narratives is right and the average Nigerian is ready to die for his country, then see a single person. Look, don't forget that I've worked in this field for 20 years. We've been in contact with the poor boys in the army. I'm not talking about the people at the top heavy, but the young boys who are being sent out to die. When even people like us can already see that if you go out this way without equipping them with this and that, these boys are going to die. So I'm just saying that for this town hall to yield the proper food, we need to bring in what I call the glocal. That is the global inputs behind the localized form of the threats. You know, I thank God the CDS already spoke about hybrid threats. He spoke about asymmetrical warfare. He spoke about foreign funding. And I'm saying to you that what you're doing right now actually covers what we call the force expander, where media is a force expander. Let me remind us, as you are listening to this program, the whole of this nation is listening. The leaders who are the greatest enemies of the country are also listening. And I want to tell you something. There is no point if your enemies are already deploying artificial intelligence and they listen to us speaking at this level. In fact, after all we have said, they even draw more conclusions and then push some buttons to advance this. So please, let's add the glocal to this, and then there will be tomorrow for us and our children's children. Thank you, Sean.
All right. Thank you so much, Pastor Ladi Thompson. The last time I saw you, there were no gray on your beard or your eyebrow, but a lot has since changed. Thank you so much for those insights there. There are a few people in the room that I'll be bringing quickly and allow the panelists to be able to respond to some of those questions. I know we do have Mr. Paul Alaje. He's an economist. If you could, please go to the microphone so that we can get your views on this situation.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me. My question, I want to build just a background to this. I understand that states that have more insecurity, I compare them with the reports regularly shared by the National Bureau of Statistics. What is common between these states is poverty. States that are poor seem to have more insecurity. And it's not just in Nigeria. Countries that are poor also have insecurity challenges. How do we solve the problem of hunger, of deprivation in our states and create more opportunities? I also want to ask questions. When I was much younger, when I was in primary school, I remember my father would bring me out and tell me to watch television. That time, television don't start until 4 or 5 p.m. with several colors on our TV screen. So if anyone has committed crime, it was in the public domain. There were examples, and parents will tell their children that if you do what is wrong, what I've not told you to do, this is what may happen to you. Now, this generation feels, oh, that's stretch, we don't do. But how do we bring out some examples to say that people that have done wrong were truly, this is the end result of people that have done wrong? Again, I also think people who have worked for government, for instance, I don't want to speak about private sector. And these people have worked so well. They've committed their life in the police, in the military, at different parts, different departments, different agencies of government. But when it comes to rewarding them in terms of paying their gratuity, pension, and so on and so forth, we will see them queue for long. We will see them fight. Some of them will even lose their life. What are we now telling people who are currently working for government or who are not even working for government? What kind of future are we creating for them? Do we say that if you work or you do good things, you are going to have positive results, or if you don't? So all of this is on, there is an handshake between economy and insecurity. It will be a real system from Lagos to Kaduna. The terrorists came and removed some of the tracks. So insecurity stopped the project. So if you build an economy without security, economy will not function. If you build security without economy, it will still not function. How do we have this smooth handshake, especially issue of poverty and hunger? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paul Alaje. I'm hoping that if you would need to react to any of this question, any of the panelists can. Please go ahead. I guess Ms. Rosemary Effing isn't.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Democracy Day to all of us. My name is Rosemary Effiong. I'm the National Coordinator for Society for Empowerment and Self-Reliance. First of all, we have talked so much about state policing. And I want to add my voice to say, before we amplify or raise the tempo for state policing, we have something in quotes that look like state policing, which we have the vigilante established by some regional governors and the states themselves. So what are the governors doing to work with the federal security outfits to build the capacity of the vigilante they have established? We know the issues we're having. If you have worked across states, we know the issues they're having. Then secondly, I want to ask about synergy in terms of intelligence gathering with the security agencies. So there's need to build that synergy so that we have uniformity in our database. Without that, it's difficult for we to move forward. Then finally, as a nation, somebody have talked about identifying the problem. Let's not be in a hurry to establish state policing because it comes with its own challenges as well. So we have identified some issues. Let's start addressing the basics because every political pronouncement has economic implications. We are struggling with minimum wage now. We have not been able to get a headway. Labor is dragging, government is dragging. The poverty index is very high. So if we don't address the basics, we'll not be able to get it right when we get there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. F. Young. I understand that Michael Ekweme is standing by. Please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I think the major problem is from the governors. And I want to ask a question. The security votes the governors take, is it for their personal use or for the state? Because I think if they are using the security vote properly, then a lot of things will be addressed. Now, you come to most of the police stations, you come to a divisional police station, they will have only one patrol vehicle. So how can they tackle criminality where you have one patrol vehicle in a police station? Now, I also think they should have a police filling station whereby the policemen can go and sign for their patrol. The policemen tax the citizens to buy fuel to go and patrol. So you don't expect a policeman, after taking money from the citizen, to start patrolling morning, afternoon, night. So if there is adequate provision for the security, for the police people, they're going to do effective policing. You also come to the local government. At times, the governors give them benchmark for the security vote, maybe 4 million, and they don't tribute them to the DPO. You come to some states, you see that the commissioner of police don't even have official cars. Like our DIGs here, the police have another system. At this level, he has experience for policing for a long time, but very soon you see that they will retire all the DIGs and bring somebody, a CP or IG, and make him an IG. Meanwhile, the people who have the experience to do the job will be retired because they are playing politics. Then you come to our localities. When you give information about a criminal, to the police, tomorrow they assassinate the person because he's not protected.
All right.
Then we also lack values. You now see today, you see a young boy, a young girl in SS1, year one, using an iPhone of 1.5 million naira. What is he doing? Then other people are trying to emulate. Everybody wants to live a big life. People are not being questioned. How did you make your money?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael Ekweme. I guess it's Jonathan Bauer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Thank you for having me. My question borders about the relationship between the security detachment in the states and the state governors. Because I watched helplessly how the state governor was trying to make a point that he's not in charge. And oftentimes we know that state governor is being called chief security officer of the states. So today we are hearing that he's not in charge. And we definitely know that these people take every weaknesses of lack of cooperation between the state governor, who happens to be the chief security officer of the states, and then the security detachment in the states to perpetrate their hideous activities. So can I want more to have more the CDS to elaborate more on the relationship in terms of control order and information divulgement between the security detachment and the state governor, to know whether the state governor can be able to control the security personnel, that there's a problem here and there's a problem there, and they also obey the instruction. Thank you very much.
All right. Ms. Chonibare, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Buki Shonibare, and I'm the Executive Director of Invictus Africa. When the Chibok girls were abducted 10 years ago, one of the things that we said was that it was an unprecedented action. And that is because we had over 200 school children taken. It was unprecedented because we've not seen that large-scale amount of abduction at one time. Now, between 2014 and 2024, 10 years on since the Chibok girls were abducted, we've had at least 35 abductions of school children that has led to over 2,000 school children that were abducted in those cases, if not more. Nigeria is party to the Safe School Declaration. So my question to the security agencies here is that what measures are being put in place to ensure the minimum standard, at least, of security and safety of schools so that children can enjoy the right to education without divulging sensitive security strategies? Are there measures being put in place to make sure that we don't have a repeat of Chibok girls abduction or all other large-scale abductions that we have seen in recent times? And lastly is to ask about the missing persons register. One of the things that came up following the abduction of the Chibok girls is the fact that Nigeria, we don't have a missing persons register. And yet every day we see that the military rescue people who have been abducted or kidnapped at one time or the other. Do we have data to show who was abducted when and where? And so families can also know where to check. And when the security agencies rescue these people, we can tick off their name on their list and we can know the state of missing persons in Nigeria. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sheila Kujobi. It's no secret that we have innumerable brilliant young minds in Nigeria. So my question is this: what efforts are being made to capture the young energy of Nigerian youths who are technologically advanced, tech-savvy people that have the abilities to go off, to go amiss, if these skills aren't properly harnessed? That's my question.
Thank you. Thank you, Shem. The Chief of Defense Staff, I congratulate you for your boldness to come to a gathering like this and to share your very dynamic, intelligent presentation. But my question is for you, and then I'll go to the DIG. Sir, how do you rate the interagency rivalry and overlapping responsibility that impacts the efficiency of intelligent operations in Nigeria. That's for you. For the policeman, sometimes you speak as though you're going to arrest everybody here, but let me ask you, sir, what are the measures that the police is putting in place to take care of the most vulnerable in our society? Do you know what to do when a person with disability is arrested? Do you know how to take care of him? What are the measures that you have that the community of persons with disability can beat their chest to say, the police will protect me if and when I need such protection? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's go around the room, and if any of the questions are now answered, I will remind you. But let me begin. I think something, we've not heard your voice in a while. Are there any areas of some of these concerns that you'd like to touch on quickly?
Well, since Jake spoke last, I think that we owe an apology to the women of Nigeria, that we are discussing a very fundamental issue where in most cases they are the worst victims. And on this panel, we don't have women, but they are contributing from the floor. So we do sort of apologize. We should apologize. And it's really serious because I prefaced my intervention earlier with the discussion around transparency and inclusion. I think there are 3 key points. The first point is when you think about political will, is political will across board. Is political will to amend the Constitution to address some of those structural inequities that are laden in our Constitution. So if you say it's devolution of powers, but safeguarding our local government system, one of the best things that has happened to us in Nigeria today, there seemed to be an elite conflict or a conflict in the elite class with respect to devolution of power. While the president, on one hand, is pro-devolution of power, but at the component units, which are the state governors, some of them are averse to local government autonomy. And I think it's an opportunity for Nigerians to rally around the National Assembly in its effort to amend the Constitution to institutionalize local government administration, because it will deepen local governance. The second is about accountability. So when we talk about terrorism financing, and I say this, I think the average Nigerian on the street, it would take a miracle for them to believe that the rate of arms proliferation in Nigeria, as well as terrorism financing, does not have a taint of complicity on the part of certain actors of state. Because how do these arms come into the country? Where do they come from? Yes, even if we have porous borders, but somehow, somewhere, we know that there are security checkpoints. We know there are gaps, but there are also institutional mechanisms. And so we also need to deal with the issue around the transparency of our security agencies. The good thing is they are fantastic, great security personnel who are doing their bit, but they are also bad eggs. We need to fish those bad eggs out and prosecute them. The last point is about accountability at the state. Of course, when you talk about addressing poverty, how do you address poverty? When only one governor, a former governor, in a state in Nigeria, went to a school, an American school, and paid how much? Over $700 and something thousand ahead for 10 years, right? The state decided to act. What happened? They appropriated the judiciary to prevent prosecution. Now, it's at the heart of because if that money was used to create jobs, was used to address the health challenges in that state, perhaps this question about addressing poverty would have been addressed. It's the same thing when you look at the governors, and you talk about security vote. At the state, we talk about the National Assembly. You mentioned the state houses of assembly. How many state houses of assemblies are so independent to limit the excesses of the governors at the state? So if we think about broader structural reforms, Even when the National Assembly passed autonomy for state houses of assemblies, do you know what happened? Some of them did what? Rejected it. Even when there was an executive order that monies should be transferred straight to local government chairmen, do you know what happened? Some local government chairmen, after they got the money, they came back to the governors and said, this is the money that we received. And so it tells you that we need to strengthen accountability at the local government level, especially limiting the excesses of the governors. But Shem, we can't end this by not raising the question about socialization around who has a responsibility for security. And I think one big takeaway from here and for Nigerians who are listening is that you have a role to play in this entire security architecture. It's not just for our security agencies. Our security agencies have their own role, but as a citizen, you also have a role. And one of those roles is to ensure at the state you hold your governors to account for some of the monies that they are not accounting for, and they are using them to fight inter-elite wars.
Quickly, because we are totally out of time, I like our interventions to be quick so that we can. Dr. Omale, please go ahead.
The link between between poverty and insecurity. Yes, it's one of those things I said earlier. And I think the easiest way to do it, like I was saying, is that the security agencies are doing a good job of fighting insecurity. The government policies are dumping more people into the pool of insecurity. So one of the easiest ways, which can be done by executive order easily, is for the government to insist every major policy of government must be backed up by security impact assessment. For example, let's say the custom says we want to increase tariff on imported cars by 300%. If you do a security impact assessment of that policy, that may mean that, hold on a second, car theft will go up by 20%. 2 million more cars will be stolen every year. So confronted with that, the government will have to decide whether that policy will go ahead. And if they want it to go ahead, it might mean to say, okay, police, here is 2 billion, strengthen your car theft unit before we introduce the policy. But the whole idea is for government to understand that every policy has security impact. Right now, that's not been done. So the security are fighting the bad guys, but more people through necessity or through poverty are being thrown or being predisposed to being used for bad things. That's the first thing I wanted to say. Now, somebody asked a question about the youth. One of the things that is missing within our internal security setup in Nigeria is the liberal use of technology. That is a major failure. There are predictive tools. I mean, for example, I was once showed a system whereby you mount it, and within a 6-week period, it will, maybe money on the main road, within a 6-week period, it will give you, based on AI, will tell you averagely how many cows passes that road every day, how many motorcycles passes that road every day, how many human beings passes that road every day. Suddenly, if 50 motorcycles shows up, that system will flag it immediately. Early warning system. So hold on a second, this is unusual. So the idea of Boko Haram on 100 of them on 100 motorbikes invading a village wouldn't happen. So there are tools and technologies that can be used as early warning system, which we can use the abundance of our youthful energy in this country to leverage. And lastly, police sector reform. Police reform is absolutely essential. And I think that area needs to be given a boost by this government. I know they are working on something in that regard, but we need to see concrete action to show that they are working to make our police even more better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. DIG, your intervention. Would you like to touch on a few of these issues? But quickly,
yeah, I can. Thank you, Sharon. One of the discussants talk about missing person register. Missing person register is an item that is always in each and every police station and divisional headquarters. Once there is a reportage of whoever is missing, it will be recorded, and at the end of the month, it will be disseminated and forwarded to headquarters as a return, and that department is under research and planning for statistical data.
So there is a missing persons register.
So there is missing person register. Then the issue of how safe our school should be, somebody should remember what we have. We have Safer School Initiative, where the members of the communities and the police personnel there and each security agency there are trained on just a one-day workshop where we have community safety officers, where there will be a sharing of information. when you look at Chibok girls that were taken that time, before the terrorist strike, they went there, they met a Shushaina and asked him, there is a school around this area. And he refused to answer them. Assuming that initiative is already on, he will have been trained, he will have passed that information to the police and other security agencies, and things will have been abated. Proactive policing.
All right.
Additionally, again, finally, even the same issue of that same Chibok girls, if the girls too were equally trained that in case there is any emergency or anything, this is the muster point, this is where you will be, it will have been abated, because most of them escaped and then turned back to the terrorists where they guided them to the vehicles they have passed.
All right.
That is part of it.
Thank you
but
so much.
I want to let you know, Sheun, since that is you don't want to come back to me, we have the innate ability to solve our own problems. We can identify them, use local solutions and solve them. Again, finally, when you look at what the IG did, is the crime mapping and the crime pattern analysis that is ongoing. That will add value and solve a lot of issues. That will make the National Assembly to increase the budgeting system and then increase openness, transparency, and accountability. And it will help us in what we do in solving problem-solving approach. And then it will equally add value in terms of people to be held responsible for whatever they are doing, whether you do it right or you do it wrongly.
Right.
Again, finally, all the policemen, in conclusion, that is the truth, all the policemen that had been killed outside, look at it, look at what had happened now in Imo State, look at what had happened in River State. You can see that the IG promised that we'll go after the perpetrators. And we have done so in Rivers, and we have gotten them.
We're totally out of time, DIG. Apologies.
Thank you.
Honorable, your final thought.
I've noticed that in this gathering, we've only talked about micro issues. There are also macro. Internal security is prevalent, but we also have externalities that we should be mindful of. I always pray for all societies' approach. I pray that I always use the Super Eagles approach. Anytime the Super Eagles play, we always come together. One of the externalities that I foresee is that in Cameroon, there's Bazoum, the Cameroonian, is going to be like an independence or so. There's likelihood of violence that can trickle into Nigeria. You also have in the West African coast, you have issues of the Francophone countries trying to kick out their colonial master. Doing that has exposed that area as well in some circumstances. You have Russia coming into the ECOWAS region. There's a need for us to protect and thank and pray for our armed forces because they have to look at externalities and also assist the police in solving IS, internal security issues. So finally, police needs to live up to their billing, step up to the plate. State police is a step in the direction, and it is something that all societies approach. Nigerians are too passive. They sit down, they allow the governors dictate to the speakers or the assembly to do what is against their interests. So Nigerians, please stand up, all societies approach. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All my defenses are down because I'm totally out of time. But as a CDS, protect me. Your final word, if you can do it in 30 seconds.
To say thank you for this opportunity to be here. I think for us it is important that we try to enlighten the public on what's going on and what we're doing and to get their buy-in. We cannot do it alone. No system can do it alone without the public. So it's important they understand. The police is doing a wonderful job. I think they're magicians. We need to give them all the support for them to be able to do so much, including all our security agencies. We're happy with the parliament. They have been doing so well. They understand what we're going through. I just want Nigerians to understand that the armed forces and the security agencies are doing the best they can and will continue to do so. Our mandate is to restore peace in Nigeria, and we'll do everything to ensure we achieve that.
It's a good time for everyone in the room to clap for themselves. It's Democracy Day. We need to celebrate ourselves. It's 25 years of unfettered, unbroken democracy. We need to beat our chests and say, we as a people of Nigeria, we've done our best to keep our nation together in this democratic practice. Some will say civilian rule. Whichever it is, we can go stronger. And that's why China's television, with those of us that supported us in making sure this is a success, we thought that security is very important. And we are asking the government of the day, all of those things that have been said today, please take them. They're very, very important. And that's our beats tonight, everyone, and our service to the nation. On behalf of everyone at Channels Television, thank you so much indeed for spending your Democracy Day with us. I'm Sean Wakimbaloye. Bye-bye, everyone.